Hi, I'm Jo Gakonga, and today we're going to be looking at concept checking number 2, and this is for structure. So we've looked at vocabulary, we're now going to extend that into grammatical structures. So before we start, let's have a quick recap. Why do we use concept checking? Well, because we need to make sure that they've understood what we've taught. So concept checking is something that comes after the teaching. We teach something in a clear context and then we check that they've understood. And what makes a concept check question effective? See if you can think for a minute what the rules were that we looked at in the last session. Okay, hopefully you've done that. Here's the ones, the guidelines, maybe I shouldn't say rules, but guidelines, helpful guidelines. Make sure that you're checking the meaning of the structure. With structures particularly, this can be a bit tricky. You have to be very sure that you've got the exact meaning and that you're specific about it, because lots of structures in English have more than one meaning. Be careful not to use the target language. Again, that's quite easy to do, very easy to do in fact. But not very helpful. And you need to make sure that the vocabulary and the structures that you're using are easier than the language that you're trying to teach, at least at the same level, preferably easier. Okay, so let's try an example and see how we get on. Here's an English structure, used to. All right, so think about it for a minute, just turn me off for a minute and think, what actually is the meaning here of used to? Okay, hopefully you've had a look at that. So here the meaning is that you did something, that it was more than once and probably a habit. This is often used for habits, and that you don't do it now. So we've got 3 key areas of meaning here for this structure. And so of course we make those into questions, concept checks. Did I smoke? Yes. More than once? Yes. Regularly, often? Yes, probably. Do I smoke now? No. So those are the concept check questions, and that's the kind of thing that we've looked at before for vocabulary as well. So we've got these questions. Let's have a look at some questions that aren't so helpful. Have a look at these, switch me off for a minute. Why are these not so helpful? Okay, so here we've got, did you smoke? Now, this isn't the same target language as used to, but on its own, it's not helpful. As part of other questions, it might be helpful, but this doesn't imply that you don't smoke now. So it could be all right as one question, but not on its own. This one is the mistake that's very easy to make. I used to smoke, did you used to smoke? This D can be there or not, both are possible. It's not usually used as a question, is it, like this? We've got the target language. Did you used to smoke? What did you used to do? I used to smoke. It doesn't mean that you understand used to. And then of course the last one, the language grading, is the problem here. We need to make it easier than the target language. One of the things that's helpful when you're talking about structures that have something to do with time are timelines. So these can be a good way to check or to illustrate the meaning, to show people what the meaning is. And what a timeline is just a line like this, running from nominally past here to nominally future here. I guess that's because we write right to left, but you know, it's just a convention. Somewhere on the line you need to show where now is, and you can put particular points of time in there if you want to. These can be helpful to show if we're talking about a temporary or a permanent situation, whether it's one particular point in time or a longer period, and also clearly when the time happens. So these can be really helpful. So let's have a look at our example again. I used to smoke, so you can see here, in the past, I did it more than once, regularly. There's a gap here, and I don't do it now. So you can see that it's quite easy to illustrate this, and you could ask learners to to draw this as well to check that they understand, or you could give them a couple of options and say which one is right. Be careful. Once people discover timelines, they often kind of apply them willy-nilly everything. They're only helpful if time is involved, and there are lots of times when time isn't the most important part of the meaning. So let's have a look at this one, for example. Clearly here there is a time involved, but it's not the most important part of the meaning of this structure. So this could mean now, it could mean in the future, but there is another thing which is more important than when about the would rather. So I'd like just to stop me for a minute and think, what is it that would rather do something actually means? So here it means that you want something and you want it more than something else. Presumably, you know, would you like a tea? No, I'd rather have a coffee. But it's not very important. If you've only got tea, that's fine. So, to make those into questions, we've got this. Okay? These are the questions from the structures that we've already had. And that's how we'll check it. So you can see here that a timeline wouldn't be very helpful, whereas with used to, it's very helpful. Okay, so have a look at these 4 sentences. We've got 4 different structures here. I want you to just stop and think, would timelines be helpful to teach these structures or not? Okay, so be careful. It's not just about that something happened at a particular time. It's about, is the time the main important thing about the meaning of this structure? Okay, so just stop me for a minute, have a look at these and think, what's the important meaning of these structures, and is that to do with time? Right then, let's have a look at the first one. So I'll be flying to Kenya this time tomorrow. Clearly this is what we call the present, future even, continuous. So we've got will plus the infinitive of be here and ing. So it's a continuous form because it's be doing something. So it's the future continuous. This one, yes, is helpful to have a timeline because it's definitely about something that's happening at a particular time. The next one, however, isn't about time. So to have something done, which is what this is, I had my suit cleaned, I had my windows polished, I had my teeth crowned, whatever. To have something done doesn't have to be in the simple past tense. This one doesn't have to be. So it could be, I will have my suit cleaned, I am having my suit cleaned, I have had my suit cleaned. Okay, so it could be at different times, and the crux of the meaning of this one is more about, I didn't do the cleaning, somebody else did it, and I arranged for it to be done. Okay, so with this one, a timeline isn't helpful. The next one, it isn't helpful either. Again, you might have kind of said, well, it's in the past. It's definitely the past. That's true. But if you put a timeline with a simple cross in the past, that could be I saw her. So the must have seen, this bit has a different meaning, and the meaning is that it's my opinion. I am sure of this. I'm sure that you saw her, but I don't actually know it for a fact, because otherwise I'd say you saw her. But you must have seen her. I'm sure you did, but I don't know it for a fact. So this is about the probability of something or the surety of something, not about the time necessarily, although clearly it is in the past. So a timeline here wouldn't be very helpful. With this last one, okay, so we've got the simple past tense here and we've got the past perfect here. Here a timeline is helpful because this action, although it comes first in the sentence, comes later than this action in the actual chronological order of things. So first of all I hid it and then she looked. Whereas for learners, because they see the things in this order in the sentence, they may well assume that first you looked and then the hiding came afterwards, which isn't true. So this is a timeline can be really helpful here to show which action came first. So here it can be helpful. So let's have a little practice. Let's take this first one then. So here's our future continuous form, the first one we looked at. I'll be flying to Kenya this time tomorrow. So I'd like you just to stop for a minute and see if you can draw the timeline for this. Okay, here it is. Here's the time now. Here's now, and it's 2 p.m. now. I don't know what time it is with you, but let's assume it's 2 p.m. Here's the past and the future. At the same time tomorrow, at this point in time, you can see that I'll be on the flight. You can see that I got on the flight before this time, and I'll get off the flight after this time. You can see that it's a longer action. You can see that it's a temporary action. It doesn't go on forever. So there's a lot of good information that you can express here with this timeline. So then, of course, you need the concept check. So just again, stop for a minute. What concept checks do you think that you would need for this structure? Okay, hopefully you've got something like this. So when will I start? And the answer is before 2 o'clock. We don't know when, but definitely before 2 o'clock. And when will I finish? We don't know exactly, but definitely after 2 o'clock. So that at 2 o'clock I will be flying. Yeah? Be careful, it's very easy. This is where it's very easy to fall into the trap of asking questions like, what will you be doing this time tomorrow? Well, flying to Kenya, of course, but that doesn't mean I understand this bit. So that's about using the target language, yes? So try to keep it simpler. You can see this is, we're using the simple future here form with will, the modal will, which is much simpler and much easier and learnt much earlier than this future continuous. Okay? So the main thing to think about is just don't panic. This does often seem quite daunting at first for people, but it does get easier with practice. And we'll do lots more practice in our input session. Okay? If you want to have a bit more practice before that, you could try writing concept check questions and drawing a timeline for the other sentences that we had. Okay, good luck. And as I say, we'll do more practice in class on this.